More importantly tonight, though, we're here to honor the men and women of our military and the sacrifice that they make in trying to keep our nation safe. I've never served myself, but most of the men in my family have served, so I've heard those stories and I've learned from their experiences. So I feel like I have a pretty good idea, at least as well as anybody who hasn't served, of what it is that they go through and the commitment that they have. And it's because of those stories that I've tried to really learn as much about their commitment as I can. And the story that I think that's impacted me the most, and that I will remember for the rest of my life, is when my mom tried to explain to me that it's not just the person that puts on a uniform that sacrifices. That person leaves a family back home too. And I remember her sitting me down, and she looked at me and she said, when your dad was in Vietnam, the entire time, any day where I could wake up in the morning, go through my daily activities, and go to bed at night, and never hear the phone ring, oh, that was a great day. Because every time that phone rang, I knew in my heart that the person on the other end might be calling to tell me that I'd never see my husband again. I thought, wow, I can't even begin to imagine what it would be like to live that way. I couldn't do it. I don't think I could honestly do it. But it's those types of stories that I've heard and I've felt that drive me to want to understand what this commitment is that our men and women of our military have and what drives them to do it. And personally, I really believe that one of the best things that we can do to show our appreciation to these men and women for what they're doing for our country is to really learn and really understand our Constitution and our history. But beyond that, I think it's equally important to understand principles and the philosophy that our Constitution was based on. Because it wasn't an accident that this thing came out the way it did. They didn't just sit down at the Constitutional Convention and start throwing out random ideas and see what happened. It wasn't James Madison going, hey, I got an idea, let's see if this works. No, maybe we'll try that. And actually, I was just talking to John Arrington about this. He says, you got to read the Federalist Papers. That's where you'll get that foundation. You'll see how brilliant a document this was. It didn't come together by accident. So what I want to do with you tonight is I want to talk to you a little bit about those principles. That's Tom mentioned it a little bit. That's what I do. I try to go around and teach as many people about the Constitution as I can. So I want to talk to you about some of the principles that built the Constitution. And so I'm not sure how to start any more basic than this. Where does the government get its authority? Us. Exactly. I like to ask the question this way. Why can't my friends and I just get together, start calling ourselves a government, and then go around taxing our neighbors? Right? Because the neighbors didn't agree to that. So they'll be quite surprised if I show up on their doorstep with a tax bill. I'm probably not too happy about it. Probably the easier way to say that is just that any legitimate government gets its authority from the consent of the people. And that is built on one of the most fundamental core principles that this nation was built on. The idea that all men are created equal. Does anybody have a problem with that idea? Everybody's with me on the all men are created equal? All right. So if all men are created equal, and we all just agreed that they are, then on what basis does any one man have a right to rule over another without his consent? Right? Let me ask that again just to be clear. If all men are created equal, then on what basis can any one person rule over another person without their consent? None. There's no reason, because that one person's no better than anybody else. A good way to illustrate that. Let's assume for a moment everybody in this room is in a state of nature. So there is no government. There is no society. We're just all sort of milling around, doing our thing as individuals. What right would I have to bust in here and say, I'm in charge here, and y'all are going to do exactly what I tell you to do? What right do I have to do that? To impose my will on you? What was your name? Tom? Ed. Nice to meet you, Ed. So I was going to ask somebody, what would your gut reaction be if I said that? Ed says, good luck. I love that. That's exactly what I was thinking. Because what right do I have to tell Ed what to do, right? I'm no better than he is. And I bet if I told him to do something he didn't like, he wouldn't think it was very fair. So this illustration really shows you how brilliant this system of self-government is that our Constitution sets up. Because if no man has a right to rule over any other, then it makes a lot of sense that we might get together and govern ourselves, doesn't it? It's a brilliant idea. Another concept that I'm pretty sure you've all heard of is this idea that all the power in this country originates in the people. All right? We've all heard this? Why? Have you ever thought of that? Why does the power originate in the people? Anybody have an idea? You're getting there. It's the same concept, because we created the government, didn't we? There was an American people on this continent long before there was an American government. We created the government. So any power that our federal government has, we gave it to them. It originated in us. That's where that concept comes from. And it leads to another idea that you may or may not have heard of, the idea that the federal government can't do anything that I can't do as an individual. Has anybody heard that idea before? Yes. Quite a few of you. Very cool. I like this. Well, that idea has a reason too. Big shock. It's because power's like anything else. You can't give what you don't have. You know, what was your name? Right here. Yeah. Marina? How would you like $1 million? Marina would like $1 million. Okay, very cool. Why can't I give you $1 million? Because I don't have $1 million, and I'm not a congressman, so I can't cut a deal to make somebody else pay her $1 million. So even if I would like to give Marina $1 million, I can't do it. And so, by extension, it's the same way I had you going. You thought you're excited, huh? If I had it, I would give it. They say the first million's the hardest. But it's the same way with power. Even if we might want to give the federal government power to do things that we can't do, we can't do it. So how might that look in reality? Right? Well, even in a state of nature, before there's a government, I have no God-given right to violate the life, liberty, or property of any other person. By extension, the federal government has no right to violate the life, liberty, or property of any citizen. To apply that to current events, there was this potential bill that probably won't pass now, the health care thing. I'm sure you're all devastated that's not going through, right?